Spencer, the man whose campaign you worked on, Barack Obama, has been urging people, don't call it yet. It's going to be a long night. Analysts are talking about how in 2020, Trump had the lead over Biden, but it's only when the final votes were counted that the results flipped. Do you believe that could still happen, that there is still a path for Kamala Harris, or do you think that this momentum now belongs to Donald Trump?
No, I think certainly for the moment it is too early. This is quite likely the well-known red mirage because of the different rates at which ballots are counted, depending on whether they're mail-in ballots or polling day ballots, and depending on which states you're talking about, because some states like Pennsylvania count much more slowly than other states like Florida, for example. It's entirely possible, of course, that Trump will win. I think what we know at the moment is that perhaps the polls were so far surprisingly realistic in that it has appeared to be every bit as tight as the polls predicted. Now, again, that could change, but I would caution viewers not to read too much into what we're seeing so far. As far as the New York Times needle goes, it should not be dismissed. But on the other hand, in 2016, that same needle famously was predicting something like a 99% likelihood of a Hillary Clinton win at one point, and then it suddenly veered wildly as the night went on, and we saw how differently that worked out.
So you're holding your analysis because you're not convinced that this is the actual outcome, Spencer?
That's right, yeah.
Fair enough. I think both sides have hopes alive, and that's fair. The New York Times needle is on our screen, but Spencer reminds us that this needle lurched towards Hillary Clinton and got it terribly wrong. So everybody's being very cautious, having learned from past mistakes. Vibhuti, you're a Republican Party supporter. Not all Republicans support Trump. Do you want Trump to be your next president?
Oh, yes, I do. I do, because I think he did well in his first term. And one of the reasons why he is gathering so much support is because his entire term is before the eyes of the people to evaluate, examine, dissect, or trash, to make your pick. But one thing we do know, that during his term, no new wars happened. During his term, inflation was at 1.6 or 1.8%. During his time, we know that employment rates and real wages were higher than anybody else, for cutting across all sections of the society, and immigration was in control. Reverse that, all of these are problem in Biden administration, all of it. And people are feeling it. But the New York mayor, who accused or kind of lambasted Biden administration for their lax immigration policy, he suddenly went into an investigation, and there are charges filed against him. Think about it. Your own party man, who is a mayor of New York City, which has a history of, excellent cadre of mayors who revived the entire New York City from the gutter that it was in 1990s to what it has become today. And he is asking a budget of billions of dollars at $400 per day for illegal migrants to live in five-star hotels. You see the common man in New York City or anywhere in the country really annoyed. And Seema said it very correctly. The entire romance that they had with the people and the vote, you knew it was fake. There was nobody more ingenuous in making statements that were so wrong. So here is another very important issue to evaluate. The Indian American community. Why did they go? Traditionally, they voted 80-20 pro-Democrat. This year, it is likely to go down to 50-50. If not 60-40, it will go down to 50-50. That's what the estimate is. The reason, not much talked about the fact. Seema pointed out to economy, price rise, and everything else. But there was a very important element that played into the minds of many Asian and Southeast Asian families across America, because they began to treat children, Democratic Party, as accidental tourists in the family. Children are not, in our culture, children are different kind of a thing. And the parental control, the transgender sex change, that California governor introduced a legislation that if you and I disagree with the gender change of our child will be taken away. This horrified many groups of people. And a Muslim friend of mine told me, for the benefit of Spencer and the other gentlemen, he said, I don't want my son Muhammad to go to school and come back as Mumtaz. Because his son, this man's son, a 5-year-old boy, said, Dad, I want to wear girls' clothes. And he was horrified.
Okay.
So there is an issue
Okay.
that cuts across everybody.
So
I will
the
say
debate.
one thing to Spencer's point, just one Spencer
Yes.
point. Yes, I will not celebrate until the last whistle has gone. So yeah, the whole time to go.
Yeah,
Not
I was just going to say, A, we have to keep saying that it's not over yet. That's the health warning. B, there is, the debate around the trans community and what children should be entitled to do in terms of sex change surgeries. I know is a big polarizing issue in the United States of America, but I can't imagine, as Vibhuti is arguing, that it's the one issue that has actually swung or moved the vote of the Indian Americans, 5.2 estimated million Indian Americans, who have traditionally, by the way, in the past voted Democrats. There is also, though, Trump's comments on the attacks on Hindus and other religious minorities, Hindus in Bangladesh, that has got perhaps more attention. But Vibhuti, you of course speak as a Republican supporter, and fair enough. Jamie, let's bring you in. I know you're not a Trump fan. Are these numbers worrying you?
Certainly, it's worrying to look at all of these figures, and we can all have fantasies before elections, but then the elections just give us numbers. So there were some people who were hoping that maybe there were hidden voters, maybe there was going to be a surge of college-educated women, and at least so far, it doesn't look like that's happening. Certainly, it's not over yet. It's far from over. Key battleground states have not yet reported conclusively. So there is a path for Donald Trump, and there's a path for Kamala Harris. But things are not looking great right now for Kamala Harris. It's our country is extremely divided. There are big, important issues that are dividing us. And for people like me, certainly we can look at individual issues. But I may look young, but I remember the War of 1812. And it really pissed me off when the British attacked the capital of our country. And it really pissed me off on January 6th when the mobs inspired by Trump attacked the capital of our country. And you can go look at the buildings in Washington, D.C., and you can feel that democracy just exists. But democracy is something that we create and recreate. And Donald Trump has attacked the norms and structures of our democracy with the peaceful transfer of power, the most important among them. He has trashed in many pillars of the post-war liberal international order that has helped keep the world safe for nearly 80 years. And so, yes, there are differences on a bunch of issues, but at least as I see it, really the America that we have known is on the ballot. And if the American electorate willfully elects somebody who's calling the press the enemy of the people, who has inspired mobs to attack the capital of our country, who has talked about imprisoning his political enemies, it's certainly deeply concerning. But having said that, we're all Americans, and whatever happens, we're going to have to find a way to come together and work together because we're all on the same ship.
One of the things you said is that things are not looking good for Kamala Harris. And while I don't want us to get ahead of the actual results, and, history teaches us to be patient before calling this election, to Seema's point about this sort of big bang celebrity last mile by Kamala Harris seeming somewhat out of touch with ordinary folks, one of Trump's Teflon qualities has been to present himself as the regular folk, despite being a sort of billionaire, present himself as the outsider when he's not an outsider, to present himself as a non-elite when he is in fact an elite himself. But the point is that politics is all about narratives. And do you agree with Seema that if Kamala Harris loses, and I'm saying if Kamala Harris loses and Trump wins, then the blame will be put at Biden's door? He took too long to get out of the way. She only had, a few weeks and so on.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. President Biden, who is my former boss, I love him, I respect him. It was not appropriate for him to say that he was going to, at his age, that he was going to seek the nomination for this election. whatever happens, the right thing for him to have done was 1 year ago to announce that he wasn't seeking the nomination. So we could have had a traditional open primary. I still think there's a hope for the Democrats to win. But if the Democrats don't win, I think it will erase the entirety of Joe Biden's lifetime legacy.
That's a big statement, that if the Democrats don't win, it will erase the Biden legacy. Meanwhile, Associated Press is now projecting a lead for Trump in the key state of Pennsylvania. And this is where Kamala Harris had really set her hopes for her path to victory. And this is breaking right now. Trump projected to get 50.7% of the vote compared to 48.3% for Kamala Harris. Pennsylvania has 19 counts or 19 votes in the Electoral College. So that's a big one. But again, nobody's calling this right now. This is going to keep changing. Anand, this is a big statement from Jamie right now, that if Donald Trump is the next president and Kamala Harris loses, it's going to erase the legacy of the Biden presidency. As a Republican supporter, you might agree with that. What's your take?
I don't think that if one particular candidate from a particular party loses the election, it erases the legacy. In any case, Democrats, they have their long-standing legacy. And before I say anything, like everybody has stated on your panel, I also believe that we should wait till the last result is there. At times, I am a believer that last over in a game is
I'll
very
have to go
important.
now. Thank you very much.
At times, even the last ball.
Sorry, Anand, can I just interrupt you, because Spencer has to go? I'll get a quick 10-seconder from him, and then I'll let you complete your point. Spencer, we barely got to hear you, so just a quick last thought before we let you go, and we hope you'll join us again.
I would love to. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry I have to rush. It's a very busy night, as you can imagine.
I understand. No sleep for the wicked, and we're all wicked tonight.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Do you want to comment on what Jamie just said, that if Kamala Harris loses, it would erase the Biden legacy? Do you agree with that?
No, I think Biden will go down as a historically effective president, but it might take a while for people to realize that.
What is your expectation given these numbers?
I am anxious that it's even close, given that Donald Trump is intent on overthrowing democracy, as he's already shown. It's extremely alarming. So however it works out, even if Harris wins, we have a very serious problem there. And I am so sorry, I must go.
No, we'll let you go. Thank you for those comments, and I'll take that back to Anand right away. Spencer, thank you. We'll see you later again. I think that's the point, right?
Yeah, I was giving an example that we won this World Cup on the last ball of the over, that is Surya Yadav's catch. So I will say that we should be cautiously optimistic, but we cannot just conclude right now that Trump has won the election. But coming back to your question, Biden's legacy, irrespective of my differences with Biden's policies, I personally believe that he will go down in the history of the United States as a very sacrificing and great man. I mean, after he got the nomination of Democratic Party, and he could have contested against Trump, and you never know, in election you win or lose. But I personally believe that he very gracefully accepted that he cannot win the election and let Kamala Harris be the nominee. So to that extent, I have a lot of respect for him, that he didn't say that I want to stick to.
Yeah. Well, I think I want to bring in Jamie. I want to bring Jamie in. Orna Bray is joining us, author and commentator. But Jamie, you heard what Spencer said. Biden has a historic legacy. You know, in India, Manmohan Singh, former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, used to say history will be kinder to me than all of you were. Spencer seemed to be saying something similar about Joe Biden. You're, of course, painting a scenario where Kamala Harris could lose, and given the numbers coming out of Pennsylvania, the dead heat in Virginia, I think the Harris campaign has reason to be very anxious at this hour, because Pennsylvania was a great hope. Again, we're not calling it, but to the point that Spencer made, that Biden is underappreciated. He has a historic legacy. It's just not appreciated. Since you made this big statement, if you can come out with these pictures now, I want to see Jamie's face. Since you made this big statement that Biden's legacy will be erased if Kamala Harris loses, I want you to just elaborate on that.
Yeah, what I don't mean that all of the work that he's done will be lost. What I mean is, just like Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who had spent her entire career a justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, made all of these contributions, but then decided to hold on in spite of her cancer and not step down when there was during the Obama administration. Net, she had, unfortunately, in spite of all of her great contributions, that one decision overshadowed everything else. And so I hope Kamala Harris will win. I have great respect for Joe Biden, but I do believe that if Kamala Harris should lose, that one decision will be the defining moment of President Biden's entire career. And I think that's deeply unfortunate, even though I have great respect for him. I personally had organized a petition among former Biden staffers after his disastrous performance in the presidential debate on June 27th, calling on him to announce that he wouldn't seek the nomination. It took almost 1 month for him to make that decision. I think anybody looking at President Biden now recognizes just how impossible it would have been for Joe Biden, certainly to win this election, but to serve as president for another 4 years.
Okay, just before we bring in Seema and Arnab, Kamala Harris has improved her tally. So this is like we're saying it every minute when nobody's calling this election yet. Harris is now projected to get 179 to Trump's 214. That's the projection by the AP, the Associated Press. CNN is slightly different. If I can just have the CNN numbers on my screens, it's 145 for Kamala Harris to Trump's 211. So yes, this isn't over yet. It's advantage Trump for sure, but it isn't over yet. I want to bring in Seema and then Arnab. Seema, I want to let you complete your point. Let's assume for a moment, as Jamie did, that Trump is the next president. You were making the point about a kind of celebrity-driven last mile push by Kamala Harris that you think may have counter-bombed because it was a kind of elite echo chamber. I want you to make that point again, saying this isn't over yet. This isn't over yet.
Absolutely. I was surprised because given the fact that in 2016, Hillary did the same thing, closed out with this humongous celebrity rally, while Trump was in some rinky-dink town, somewhere. I don't remember where, but he was in Ohio, I think. So, and she didn't even bother to travel to some of these states that she lost. They were so confident. So the point I'm making is that, it is supposed to energize the base. That's why because Democratic strategists have been asked this question, what is this obsession with celebrity? Because we know the celebrity are always, left-leaning and liberal and all that. And they are not hurting from the policies that are hurting the people who are deciding this. Why is it 50-50 for the last, 3 months? So the strategists say, oh, well, it's to energize the vote. So the next day, your people will go out and vote. And everybody who gets to come to these music concerts and things, their emails are there in the vote bank and they get text alerts and all that. But this is a minor point. I think the bigger issue for the Democrats this time around, in my humble opinion, has been that they weren't able to define, they weren't able to have a clear message. Trump was very clear and he kept badgering at the same message and it really resonated. She broke it, I'll fix it, was one sentence. Other was like, all these illegals are coming and they're changing the country. Of course, he used extremely vile rhetoric, extremely. But, the Dems focused on the vileness of the man, not on the issues and how it's resonating with people. Immigrants taking over little towns in America is a problem, like it or not. Men, one issue the Republicans have been talking about is men competing in women's sports. People who have changed their sex, but still have, I suppose, I don't know that much about this issue, still have the power of the, male gender, maybe. So one school volleyball team one girl was hit by one such person so hard that her eye was injured. In the swimming team in Virginia, college team, the entire team came to a Trump rally when he went to Virginia last week to talk about this issue. They don't want men in women's sport because they can't compete. It's unfair. All the parents are with them. All the parents.